What's going on, good people? Good afternoon. Hope things are going well for you. They are going pretty well for me after a game like the game we had last night. Obviously, it's just a preseason game, but you can't ask for much more as a Seahawks fan, I don't think. Last night was the best of this team, I believe. I think that we saw all the things we wanted to see, and I guess with the exception of special teams, we didn't see anything we didn't want to see. And yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. But you guys know that over the last year or so, I've made it a weekly tradition after Seahawks games of taking a look at what Pro Football Focus has to say. They do their grades shortly after the game ends. Usually they're available by the next morning. And I like to take a look at what Pro Football Focus cooks up about the Seahawks every week. Not because I think Pro Football Focus is always right about everything. Not because I think they're always wrong either, like some people seem to. I think they simply do good work, and I know they put a lot of effort into this, and they're going to be coming from a place of much more knowledge than a vast majority of people who try to talk about football. Again, that doesn't mean they're going to get everything right. I think they have some real holes, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, but I think even they would admit that. And that doesn't mean it's not worth looking at. So, Pro Football Focus grades, we're going to start with the offensive side of the ball today. We're going to do the defense later, and that will round out our initial look at the way this game went, I think. We'll talk more about various elements of this game in the coming days, of course. We're going to have plenty of time to do that. Click the thumbs up button on this video, please. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to support the channel. And it's pretty darn obvious what is worth talking about offensively. You take a look at this chart, you take a look at the grades, and it's not hard to figure out. The offensive line, the blocking, was absolutely dominant last night, and you can see 4 of our 5 offensive line starters in that game. Anthony Bradford, Jalen Sundell, Abe Lucas, Graze Abel, graded a 78 or higher. 2 of them graded above a 92. And by the way, since we're talking about blocking, don't forget Robbie Oots. Robbie Oots, I know it's 5 snaps. I'm not going to get over the top about it, but 85.9 for him in those 5 snaps. He's clearly doing something right. And Jalen Sundell, one of the guys who was graded incredibly high in this game, did not just play those first 19 snaps like the other offensive linemen. He actually played 31, and he kept up that high level. That's the main story to take away from last night, I think. And watching the game, I think it was pretty clear those were the guys that were doing the best work. But Pro Football Focus backs up that assumption. And it's good to see. I know it's a preseason game. I know that Jalen Sundell might not even start this year. I don't know. Although we got to reopen up that conversation at this point. I'll probably make a video talking about Sundell a little bit later this week. Or, well, I guess at this point it's next week. Saturday's the last day of the week. We all know that, I think. And it's possible that this stuff will not translate over to the regular season. It's not like the Chiefs are playing Chris Jones. I understand these things. But the fact that it's everybody, the fact that it's pretty much everyone on that front except for Josh Jones, who is the most obvious future backup of the guys on the front line, that tells you there's something going on above just the individual player level that is very, very good. The coaching is reaching these guys. And that, I think, is way more exciting than any one group of players doing really well. So Bradford was our highest graded offensive lineman in this game. Now, most of these positive scores come from run blocking. And that makes sense because the Seahawks did a lot more running the ball than throwing the ball. But you can see, I think that first drive really speaks to it. There's no opportunity for the Chiefs to get pressure on Darnold. If you look at that first drive, it's not just that they didn't get pressure on Darnold. They had no chance to get pressure on Darnold because they're so focused on stopping the run, which was so dominant on that first drive, and almost every pass play is off of play action. Darnold is rolling out. Like, as a defense, there's really not a ton you can do. It's really hard to get pressure in that circumstance. So beautiful, beautiful stuff there. Beyond that, the other really highly graded offensive player was Derek Young, who I mean, we called him out last night many times. He had a really, really good game. I don't know if it's going to be enough to make this team, but he's certainly going to try. And a game like yesterday is only going to help. Drew Lock graded very well. Also, 75.2. Can't ask for much more from him. You got Halani coming in here with a strong grade. And he didn't even play that much, thinking back on it. They got what they needed out of him. They got his 50 yards, and he sat down. Cody White, JSN barely played, but he was graded well. It's a lot of really good scores here. Charbonnet, Bobo, Amari Kite, who had a penalty yesterday and still came in graded above a 70. That's more than 11 players graded above a 70 on offense. And I know it's the preseason, but that is still very good. And 70 is not the sea level. 60 is sea level, so we can keep going for a little bit here and still talk about players that were at least above replacement level. Damian Martinez, 69.1. He had a good game. Corey Horton, who I know people are disappointed that he didn't get to do more because he got dinged up, but who cares? We know he's going to make the team. We know he's doing stuff that is getting people's attention in a positive way. He doesn't need to go out there and have 10 catches in a preseason game to prove himself. Even he got graded out pretty good on the snaps that he did play, and it was 18 snaps. It's not like we're talking about 3 plays here. Ricky White, Brady Russell. And Brady Russell was a guy who people were a little down on after that first game because he had that one really bad penalty. He's playing fullback out there for a non-trivial portion of this game and looking a lot better. Arroyo, well above average. Mike Jarrell, didn't notice anything bad from him. He gets an above average grade. Sam Darnold, look, everything he did was easy. All the throws he made were simple throws. So I understand why this grade isn't higher, but at the same time, if the team runs the ball the way they did last night, and I'm not saying they will, that's not realistic, but if they can control the game to that extent, then Darnold's not going to have to do much more than what he did in yesterday's game. So if he comes into games this year and puts up a 64.8 PFF grade, and he's just handing the ball off to a really dominant rushing attack, there's nothing wrong with that. Josh Jones, Jacardia Wright, Mason Richmond, John Reese Plumlee, who I didn't even notice play last night. Eric Sauber, even. You got to get all the way down here to find guys that were even graded below 60, which again is kind of like sea level. Now, I'm not saying there isn't some mildly alarming stuff down here, although some of it is the product of small sample size. Like you got Cooper Kupp here, 57.3, but he only played 7 snaps. AJ Barner, Marquez Valdez-Scantling only played 10 snaps each, so they didn't get graded well, but I don't know if we're taking much away from that. If anything, the thing we should be taking something away from is the fact that MVS barely played. That may be a sign of things to come. We'll talk more about that in a future video. The things on this grading chart that I would be noticing would be number 1, Christian Haynes. He did not get scored well. Now, he didn't score well last week, and I actually thought he played well against the Raiders, so I'm not saying that means he played poorly. It is worth noting, though, that they are continuing to beat up on him, and it's very possible that they've got something behind why they're grading him so poorly. To a certain extent, Milroe was graded pretty poorly, although I think we all expected that, and Lomea, the worst grade on offense. I don't think Lomea was really in play to continue to start on this offensive line, especially not now. But clearly, he's doing something very wrong. 2 penalties last night, really poor graded all around. His what is that? Yeah, pass blocking grade is atrocious. Right down there with Christian Haynes. So those would be the 2 guys really that I'm a little down on right now. I'd say Milroe as well, but we should expect games like this from Milroe right now. So moving beyond just the overall top-level grades, passing chart for the 3 quarterbacks, there's really not much to say. Like, this is Darnold's passing chart. 0 throws to the intermediate part of the field, 0 throws deep. Nothing deep, nothing past 10 yards. He threw 2 passes short and 2 passes behind the line of scrimmage. That is it. Very, very simple, normal stuff. Very, very basic stuff. You go to Drew Lock. 0 throws deep, nothing more than 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And then he had 4 passes in the intermediate. 2 of them complete, 2 of them incomplete. But nothing gets pushed down the field. We got 5 passes short. We got 3 passes behind the line. And then Milrow, nothing deep, 2 passes intermediate, and then everything else is short, nothing behind the line. So we played this whole game of football, and we saw a decent number of passing attempts, nothing more than 20 yards down the field. That is the part of this offense that may just be missing this year, and that might be all right. Because in the modern NFL, the deep passing has really kind of faded away. I would like to know that we at least have the capacity to do it once in a while. I would like to know that there is some ability on this team to unleash it. But I think the thing to note here is that we don't have Charles Cross. So I think there is concern around having, especially a guy like Darnold, who is your starting franchise quarterback for the time being. I think there is a problem with the idea of having that guy sit in the pocket for a while for players to get deep downfield. So I'm not surprised that we're not seeing it, but it is worth noting that we are not seeing it. Everything is being kept short, intermediate, behind the line, and there's going to come a time where we need to hit a big play down the field. I mean, I'm hoping when that time comes, we can do it. So those are the passing charts. Always like to look at those. It's always a little bit tricky when you're talking about 3 different quarterbacks getting significant attempts, but the story kind of speaks for itself. It was a good game all around. Obviously, Drew Lock was by far the best. Not that we're going to derive too much meaning from that, but he did play a good game. And I made that video earlier this morning because some stuff needs to be said about Drew Lock. We need him. All right, rushing by direction, another one of my favorite Pro Football Focus things to look at. Interesting data this week. So you've got kind of 4 different elements of this that I like to take a look at. You've got outside runs, so runs outside the box. You've got off-tackle runs. You've got plays that are, off guard. And I know nobody calls it off guard, but you have outside, off tackle, off guard, and then stuff that just goes up the gut, basically. If you group it like that, outside the box was really good. We averaged somewhere around 5.5 yards a carry, left, right, both very effective, both getting it done. So the outside running, without K9 on the field, might I add, is great. Those guys are doing their thing, 100%. They can run the ball to the outside, and that's with Charbonnet, who is not a great outside runner. That's with Halani. That's with Damian Martinez, who is a power back. K9 could supercharge this outside zone rushing attack. That's what I'm looking at right now. Off tackle. Good. I mean, we didn't do a ton of off tackle running. It was 3 attempts total. But when we did it, we were averaging, 8 yards a carry? So that's the good stuff. The only area of this team that couldn't get out of second gear was running off guard in the gaps between the tackles and the guards. There, we tried it total of 10 times, had 11 yards. That's bad. That is bad. I will say a lot of the bad stuff happened late in the game when we had 4th and 5th stringers in, and it was, what's his name? Anthony Tyus running the ball. Let me check in. Yeah, Anthony Tyus III, who is the running back who clearly has no chance of making this team and will be lucky to make the practice squad. But that's the one area where things were problematic. Even running the ball straight up the gut, middle left, middle right, on either side of the center, averaging over 7 yards a carry. Really, really good. Really, really exciting. Great stuff from the running game, pretty much everywhere. I'm mostly focused on this outside zone stuff because I know that's what Kubiak really wants to do. But everywhere worked except for the off-guard stuff. And the fact that we are so good running the ball up the middle, what does that tell you about what those guys in the middle are doing? Guys like Anthony Bradford, who I think had the most important game of any Seahawks player last night in terms of proving that he's actually earning this job. And the quarterback scrambles, even though it was mostly that one play, still good. All right, final thing, I want to take a look at some of the offensive line stuff, even though a lot of what we do on PFF is look at offensive line stuff, because I think that Pro Football Focus, it's very, very crucial the work they do on the offensive line, because the rest of this stuff is not super hard to understand, but I think this is what Pro Football Focus's wheelhouse is. They look at offensive line play in a way that is really hard to do for anybody else. And I think they do great work here, above and beyond anything else they do. Pass blocking, offensive line play. So many guys got involved in the pass protection. 21 guys registered pass blocking reps in this game of some kind. Look at all this green. You got to get all the way down to Bryce Cabledew, Haynes, Lomea, and Russell to find guys that were graded poorly in this game. You have to go all the way down to the very bottom here with Cabledew, Haynes, and Lomea to find players that actually allowed a pressure. Look at all these offensive linemen that were getting multiple reps of pass protection and not allowing any pressures whatsoever. The whole starting offensive line, for one, right? We got backs picking up blitzers out of the backfield. You got backup offensive linemen. You got fullbacks. Obviously, you have some of the easy ones. Like, if you're a wide receiver, you better not be allowing any pressures. I understand that, but look at all these guys providing a well above average, sometimes even high-level pass protection. A lot of guys who really matter to this team. Look at the two starting guards. Look at Josh Jones, who may end up playing a role on this team at some point this year. He's the first guy off the bench, maybe at both tackle spots. So really, really good pass protection. The only guys who struggled were down here at the bottom. Cabledew, who will be lucky to make the team. Haynes, who, I mean, it is becoming disappointing for sure. Lomea, who we know is not a good pass protector. And Brady Russell, who, I mean, is he really going to play? Is he really going to end up playing for this team even if he makes the team? At this point, I don't know. Run blocking, I like to look at this mostly for the zone gap split. You can see we ran zone way more than we ran gap. It was a big, big deficit. Lot of zone stuff, which is very expected with Kubiak, but not an insignificant amount of gap. Like you can see when Amari Kite was on the field, 10 zone blocking snaps, 8 gap blocking snaps. So there is some degree of an understanding that in certain situations, you're going to want to run gap. And last year we saw that worked very well with Grubb. There were games where we went to a gap-based run blocking scheme and it paid off big. The distribution of grading for run blocking in this game is a lot more even, but the guys we needed to be good were good. The guys who matter were good. Very good. That's it for this week. Let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.